This is the stuff dreams are made of. I'm writer-collector Ryan Condal.
And I'm writer-collector Dave Mandel, and you're listening to the original movie prop collecting podcast brought to you by Heritage Auctions, HA.com. They've got so much stuff coming up, I'm not even going to tell you about it. That's how much stuff they have coming up. Just
Interesting.
Just an insane amount of stuff. Just things upon things upon things. So go to HA.com and check it all out because, like, words fail me. So there you go. HA.com.
I'll tease this. Yeah. I've got something consigned with them on the movie prop world that's going to be coming in the summer, in sort of probably not this season but next season. So how's that for a tease?
Ooh.
Yeah.
To be continued.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very exciting.
Presuming we don't get canceled between.
Is this your first time consigning a movie prop to them?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes, I've dabbled in art with them because that is the sort of go-to spot. And this is the first movie prop consignment. There's a specific reason for it. We'll get into it when that time comes around.
Very exciting. I could pretend like I don't know, but I actually know. But
Yeah.
I'm very curious. I have no idea what you're talking about. Interesting. So how'd that seem? Good?
Yeah, keep the illusion alive, Dave.
I can't wait to hear in a couple 20 episodes or something. Yeah. How you doing?
So much to cover between there and there. I'm good, Dave. We had a friend over for dinner tonight who works on the show, and I let him in. It was 4:30, and I opened the door, and there was still, I mean, whatever passes for sunlight in January, there was still sunlight outside at 4:30.
Is it like a thin ray, like in the tennis, like like just
a
like
ray,
marking a spot?
a ray
Yeah.
would be that's like April stuff. Rays are April, but this is just like the faint suggestion of a celestial orb in the overcast sky. But just the fact that it was not already oppressively dark at 4:30 in the afternoon shows how far we've come, because we're so far north here. Arctic Circle stuff where we are up here in England. The swing in January is crazy. By the end of January, you actually have like 2 to 3 hours more of daylight than you do on
That's
on
hilarious.
New Year's Day.
I don't think I quite realized it went that.
The parabola is so steep that you go through. So it's cool. It's starting to come around. By the end of February, it's pretty normal, and then you just kind of hang on for like, when is the warm weather coming back? But the light gets pretty normal through February, so it's not as miserable, walking your kids to school in the dark, picking them up in the dark, all of that stuff. Less vitamin D spray.
The waking up in the dark, I just hate it. The afternoon is not fun either, but the waking up in the dark is just my least favorite.
You wake up in the dark, you make the kids lunch in the dark, you make them breakfast, they eat breakfast in the dark, they get ready in the dark, and then you go to school as the sun is sort of in the early bits of January and the late bits of December as the sun is starting to crest the horizon. It's pretty anyway. It's why these people have such a deranged sense of humor. I think it just comes from necessity, but
strong national pride. So yeah, it's nice.
Yes. Is it national pride or is it just sort of national ambivalence? I don't know what it is. The Irish and the Scottish have much more like national pride. I went to this. Welcome to season 10 of House of the Dragon. This stuff dreams are made of. Here we are talking about weather and now event dinners that I went to. But I went to a Burns night dinner this weekend in Scotland.
The Scottish poet,
to celebrate the Scottish poet. He gets a whole holiday named after him. And there was it was a meal at this really cool restaurant in Mayfair, but that was paired with this whiskey tasting from Berclotti, which is one of my favorite distilleries. So a guy came down, represented the distillery, and wearing a kilt, and everything else. But the sort of beaming Scottish pride that was coming off of this man. And most of the room, other than a couple of Americans sitting, I went for the little group of us, a couple of Americans sitting down at the table. It was just sort of British people just sort of absorbing it as he kind of, playfully beat them up. And then there was one Irish guy in our group sitting at the table, and they were giving it to each other back and forth about the Irish invented whiskey and the monks, the Scottish stole it from the monks, but we perfected it, and whatever, yours has no taste and all that. Just going back and forth, and the British just had nothing to say as I just watched these two guys that were very, like clannish and like both wearing their tartans and very, very proud. And the British didn't have much to contribute to the conversation, and I sort of enjoyed spectation.
Was it a Scottish? Was it a Scottish meal? Like, was it? Did it feature game like venison or something of that nature?
Yes, venison. Yeah. There was this skink or Cullen's skink, which is a like a fish stew, but it's like a chunky stew. It was very good. There was haggis, like a sampling of haggis. They brought the haggis out to show us because they made the big proper thing, which I've had before.
Nope, not interested.
Very nutrient dense. It was a good sort of. Basically, these are the top kind of comfort foods of Scotland, and then presented, prepared and then presented in the best way. I was very very enjoyable. Had nothing to do with props, but what does? Really, yeah.
Well, in Los Angeles weather, we finally have rain. It rained last night, and it is pouring today.
Oh, okay.
And hopefully that is putting some official finishing touches on some of these fires. I learned a lesson since last we chatted about our sort of special one-off fire episode. Basically, until the fires are actually out, no insurance company will even think about writing new insurance. So even if you were thinking about, like, my resolution is to get everything organized and to sort of, make a new list and update whatever, nobody's even thinking, no one's willing to even sort of discuss it till the fires are actually out. So obviously nice to have the fires out in general, but nice to sort of at least feeling like hopefully maybe there's a plan of progress now that the fires are out. So but also we needed the rain. So of course now it's Sunday and it's like 11 a.m. and it's just like, oh my God, it's raining. I can't believe it. When is this rain gonna stop? I just want to go outside. So So welcome to LA. Yeah.
The typical LA reaction to rain. Yes. Yeah. Very good.
So what's new in non-Scottish props?
Well, I was gonna do welcome to season 10. I mean, this is
welcome to season 10. Sure,
this is a big milestone for us. We have 4-digit episode numbers. This is 1001.
I like the 1001. I feel like I would be more impressed if we somehow figured out how to do one season a year. I don't know, the 3 seasons a year. It's like like one of those Netflix shows that like they make 4 of them and then they put them out in 2 batches of 2 and they call it like season A and season.
We're really doing this to fuck over the cast, is what we're.
Right, we make money because us as producers, we get rich when us as performers get fucked. So yeah. Anyway, 10 is fine. I like the total number of episodes more than the number of seasons, if that makes any sense.
That's good. That's good. I mean, that does feel like a bigger hill that we've climbed, which now we're well up in the hundreds, which is exciting.
Yeah, when we started this thing, it was a race. Would there be a vaccine for COVID or a vaccine to stop people from podcasting? And one of those two things happened, and one we're still waiting on. So we're hopeful. We're hopeful that this is the year. We're hopeful this is the year, like an mRNA kind of a thing, and we just can stop podcasting. We'll see.
I think even our new Health and Human Services secretary, whatever his title is, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is leading science and fearing science at the same time, I feel like even he would be like, well, I'm not taking the COVID vaccine, but if there was a podcast vaccine,
I'm willing to volunteer to be one of the testers of the podcast vaccine. Yes,
I will take it. I will take that one.
But with that in mind, until there is a vaccine, we've got another good season coming up, and some surprises, and maybe even a couple of things that we've been meaning to get to for a while. We promise a deep dive coming up.
It's actually on the schedule, and
Yes.
it was supposed to be in season 9. It's not our fault. The guest really dropped the ball, and we will give him a good ribbing about that when we have him on. But it's a good one, and it's one that people will be excited to hear about. It's a good sort of crowd pleaser, I think. So that will be very enjoyable. We've lined up some really great guests. We have more stuff kind of in the hoppers, things coming along. I will say, like Dave, me, Bart, all three of us have gotten very creative, I think, about guests for this show and like what's interesting to talk about, and very resourceful and tracking them down and finding them. And I think it's been a really good kind of 3-pronged effort amongst the three of us. So
I will
patting
say,
ourselves on the back here.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, in terms of like that last episode, I think the fires that Bart and I started really kind of gave us something to talk about. So that was cool. Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah. It was really it's mostly Bart. He does a lot of the heavy lifting. But I mean, I identify the areas on the map that seem like this would be good, and then he just, I don't know what he does at the middle of the night, but yeah.
He goes out there and gets it. Yeah, I mean, really, one of the best ways to increase the value of your own prop and comic collection is to just wipe others off the earth. If you can't acquire more.
This used to be one of 2. Now it's one of 1. Yeah, exactly.
That's right. Yeah, so we have a great season ahead. We have an exciting episode tonight. It's something we were sort of hinting at the last season.
Doing a what's new in props really quickly?
I was about to.
You were going to billboard the episode. Okay,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
Come on, man.
We're out of practice.
Yeah, Dave's out of practice interrupting me. We're ready.
They're better timed usually.
So we have this great guest coming on. A topic that we've been, Dave and I have actually been excited to get into and been talking about for a while. But we recruited somebody really good for that. But before that, I was going to ask, what's new in props? I don't have something entirely. I don't have anything terribly involved. So maybe I'll just start. And then I'll segue over to you, assuming that you have something really good that segues into our guest. But in the sort of off season, this is kind of a teaser, let's say a teaser for season 10. In the off season, I got into a bit of a conversation and ended up metastasizing, growing into something a little bit bigger and kind of bore fruit. And I have made a deal for actually the biggest acquisition that I think I've ever made in terms of size and scope, and not the largest piece, but the largest sort of purchase price. Let's just say yes. It's a new sort of stratosphere for me, and it was a private deal. # private deals, and I'm just going to tease this across the season, and eventually I will have it in possession, and we'll be able to show it and talk about it, and maybe talk a little bit more about kind of what went into it and all of that. But this is just a teaser of things to come, but something very exciting that for me kind of completes a big category for me in my particular collection. It's sort of a box checked, kind of turning the page, moving on, and all very exciting. But
and I think
big deal for me.
And this is exciting. I think we're excited to announce our first new contest of season 10, which is guess what Ryan got. You can email in your guesses of what Ryan got. We're looking for the film, although you can also pick franchises. We can live in that world, although film would be really nice. And then what's more, what you think he got from said film. And the winner will get something that I didn't take from my condo during the fire evacuation.
All right.
It's a gift. We don't know what it will be, but it will be something that did not leave with me.
Is it my Conan painting, Dave?
Yeah, it could be. It could be. It could be that. It could be a lot of Chuck stuff. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities.
Very good.
My buddy Mark Huckabone has left a bunch of boxes of like rare toys there. So it could be anybody's thing that I'm just going to give away. But no, something I didn't leave behind that perhaps now I can live without, whatever. But yeah, we'll see what that is. But I mean, literally could be, I think, values from 0 to a lot, but yeah, that's the prize. But it's the what did Ryan buy? And we're gonna hint at this for a while. Maybe each week a new I don't know, some kind of a new clue or some kind of something to try and help you figure it all out. But send them on in to where?
dreamsareMadeOfPodcast@gmail.com.
There you go. So email us. Maybe we'll even have the winner on. Who knows? Yeah. I was trying to think as I was pitching the contest. I did get, speaking of Heritage, HA.com, our sponsors, I did receive the Maltese Falcon piece, which is my What's New in Props for the week. I was very pleased by it. It came framed, but I am going to reframe it. I want sort of it came in kind of a, it's not a giant piece, but it has a little bit of a border, and it's kind of framed at the border, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And I and our good friends at Melrose
Art Services
Melrose. I like to do more of a floating sort of sort of a float, sort of a what they consider to be a little bit more like gallery style framing. So a simple wood frame, which I think will look good, and then but more of a float, so that it in a way framing the object as opposed to just the image. So framing the entire object. Yeah. So I will change the frame, but I'm very pleased by it. It's really cool looking. Really interesting and really fun, and as far as I can tell, probably the only thing I'll ever get from the Maltese Falcon, but
probably
I guess you never know. But yeah, exactly.
Very true. Yeah. But that's a really good one, and I think you maybe sent me a photo of it, not in your possession, but a photo taken at Heritage.
Yes,
like a candid photo of it.
Well, I think I had mentioned on the show that I had, like, having won it, I was like, oh, I wish I had seen it in person. I sort of took a little bit of a baby flyer, and they were all kind enough to send a million photos, like, instantly. And again, it was what I thought it was. It was just, what can I say?
Never know.
With art and stuff, sometimes I do like to just sort of see it with my own eye, in terms of, like, I don't know, like, again, it's not like anything. It's sometimes with art, it's just always sort of like, oh, I didn't realize that was so dark, and I didn't realize that was so light. You just want to see, like, what does it really look like to your eye? And even though it was seeing a picture, I find, like, a casual picture was more helpful to me than perhaps sometimes the perfect beauty shot of the catalog, where it almost looks like a poster unto itself. It's a reason, I guess I would simply say, it's always great, especially when you're bidding on things, to contact the auction house and ask for additional photos, or even like whatever or if you can, go see it in person. I just think there's value in that, and in this case I was not able to, but it all worked out for the best. So there you go. So that was my What's New in Props. That has shown up, and I will take it to the frame store this week. I did a moratorium on framing during the fires, but the rains mean let the framing re-begin, so that there are more things that I cannot carry out when the next fire comes tomorrow. Yeah. So anyway, What's New in Props? Yeah.
There you go. So we've been talking. We teased this in season 9. We've been looking to David and I to speak to the new collector. Sort of, they're over the course of COVID and also the years, and since we really started this podcast, it seems to have been a lot of new blood kind of come into the hobby. I think we've converted, tooting our own horn, I think we've converted a number of people that were sort of sitting on the sidelines, interested but not quite sure how to toe in. And we've had a number of people write us and sort of say, I didn't understand this hobby at all. I didn't know how to get in. How do you know things are real? I listened to the podcast. You sort of allayed my worries and concerns. I feel like I'm confident enough to get in now. And I bought X at the auction, or I bought XYZ at the auction. So we just wanted to talk to one of these people and get a sense of, how did this all happen? How did it go down for you? Why did you suddenly jump into this when you did? What their story is, what they're into, what they're collecting, what they're looking for. It's a collector profile essentially. But we're excited, and Bart helped us track down and find this particular collector that we're going to have on tonight. And we know just about enough to start the conversation, but we wanted to have a real kind of exploratory interview with him, so that we're kind of learning all at the same time you guys are. but we're excited to bring him on. So, Collector Larry, bringing it on. Here we
Hey,
go.
hello guys. So nice to meet you.
Hey, Larry, how are you?
I'm doing real well, and I signed the NDA just as Bart requested and sent in the cashier's check. So I hope I followed all
I
the
think
rules.
the real thing, my first question is, you're not going to sue us, are you, for trapping you in this hobby? I think that's
Well,
really the
I
first thing we need to get through, you or your wife, that no one is
well
going to sue
That's
us
more
in your
important.
house. Yeah.
for me, no, you guys are good. My wife, not sure I can speak for my wife at this point.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's always the problem. Yeah. We apologize in advance to everyone in your household. You have a very nice display behind you. That's very,
Oh,
very
thank you.
cool, and we'll
Great
probably
start.
get to we'll get to that in a minute. But let's go to the very, very beginning, because I guess at this point now, how long have you actually? At this moment, how long has it been since you bought your first original prop?
Well, I'm gonna give you two answers actually
Okay,
on this. So I've been collecting my entire life, ever since I was a kid, and
sure.
much like Ryan, I kind of moved through toys and comics into when I got into my 20s, prop replicas,
You
and
were
and
kind of very big in the replica world in terms
very
of,
much
yeah.
so. I spent probably 25 years hard in the replica world, and when I was in that space,
I'm just interrupting because I'm always
that's fine.
curious. Did you have a favorite replica in your collection that maybe you still
Oh,
have, or that
I,
was there one that jumps to mind? I'm just always curious.
yeah, I'm a huge Star Trek TOS fan.
Okay.
Um, with that said, and most of my collection was that. Easily two-thirds of my collection is Star Trek TOS. But I was also a big fan of Lost in Space, the old Lost in Space show. It was
All
just
right.
one of those childhood shows that I really loved. And I
Sure.
spent about a year and a half building a replica of the robot from Lost
The
in
Robbie,
Space.
the robot, or
The,
whatever he's called.
yeah,
Yeah.
the robot. And so I still have him. He actually lives
Oh,
in my
right. Robbie
basement
the
now.
robot's the other thing.
It's his
That's this
cousin.
is the
It was actually designed by the
okay.
same guy, Robert
Gotcha.
Kinoshita, I think. Uh, but I have a full-size replica. He now lives in my basement. That's actually where I work from day to day. And he sits right behind me and keeps me company. So I still have him.
Great.
Very
Great.
cool.
Yes,
Good.
yes. But when I really got into the prop replica collecting, I did pick up just two or three. I mean, not many, just a few screen use pieces, and they were small things. A Cubit from Battlestar Galactica,
Sure.
a Tribble from Deep Space Nine. I got that from the old Star Wars, and Prop Store. I don't know if you guys ever saw a movie called Johnny English with Rowan
Yeah.
Atkinson.
Yep.
Right. Yep. So they sold off all the production items after the movie wrapped, and Prop Store did. I think it was an eBay auction at the time, but I picked up a couple of little items from that. But that was it. I never really delved any deeper than that. I was
And you were spending your real money on replicas
absolutely,
if there was
absolutely
real money being spent. Okay. So
correct.
you obviously knew that original props existed, but
I
was
did.
it a feeling of, for you in the time, was it just sort of bang for your buck, meaning like the robot would be millions of dollars, but you can
Mhm.
actually have a robot and build it yourself? Was that part of the appeal, that like the replicas were more accessible, or what do you think it was?
Yeah, there were. I think there were three factors really that kept me out of the real prop world. One was cost. Those items seemed to be more expensive, even
Right.
if
Well, we
one
solved
could
that
find
one.
them.
So go on. Yeah,
Right.
we
Yes,
fixed that. Yeah.
exactly. The second one was availability. So even though I was aware of places like Star Wars and the prop store of London, um, the nicer pieces, the higher end pieces, the cooler pieces, seemed to be somewhat elusive. It just felt like I didn't know the password to get into the club.
Sure.
Right. And then the third piece, and this is actually the biggest one for me, was how do I know it's real? Because spending so much time in the replica community, you see how clever fans can be.
Hmm.
They can build anything you can think of, anything at all. They can replicate. And most of the time, that's for innocent reasons. They just want
Sure.
one for themselves. Maybe they're going to make a few available for other collectors. Um, but they're not trying to fool anyone. But
No,
with
they're
that
selling it
said,
to you as a replica. Yes,
exactly,
but
exactly.
you are staring at it going, "Holy shit, if this had a scratch on it, it would be."
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and a lot of times, I mean, they're different materials than the original prop would have been, but in some cases, they are so close to the original prop, it is scary. It is really scary.
Oh,
So,
I get that.
so that kind of kept me out of it. And as I recall, I think your first episode was How Do You Know It's Real?
Yep.
And I listened to that.
So
It was
wait,
during
really
the
quickly, because
pandemic.
I do a question about this. So
Sure.
going back to our first episode during the pandemic, how did you bump into us? Like where, I mean, I know we put up like some posts about it and stuff. Was it like a Facebook post or something where all of a sudden you were like, oh, there's a show about collecting and the first episode is How Is It Real? Like, how did you find us? I'm just curious initially.
Sure. It was Ryan, I believe, had posted on the Replica Prop Forum that, hey, we've got a new show starting up. And I will admit I was unfamiliar with Ryan or you, Dave, or your work.
All right.
But yeah,
Still is, but now familiar with the podcast.
Exactly. But yeah, so I listened to it out of curiosity. And the odd thing is, I listened to your first episode, and then I think it was like another year later before I actually really got into the podcast. I was now working from home. We were in the middle of the pandemic. I was looking for something to listen to while I worked. And I'm like, I remember that podcast I checked out. And once I really got into a few episodes, I was hooked. And I burned through all of your episodes and then went back and listened to them again. I've
Dear
listened
Lord.
to, yeah, I know, it's crazy, isn't it? But yeah, there were several episodes. Even I'm one of those collectors. I'm
Bart,
fascinated
if you're
by
listening,
collecting.
call the police.
Well, I'm one of those collectors that I just love the collecting, process, no matter what you collect. I watch YouTube videos on collecting Hot Wheels. I don't like Hot Wheels. I don't have no desire to have Hot Wheels. But it's fascinating watching people who love to collect Hot Wheels
the
talk about it.
stories, the
Yes.
hunts, the different. Yes, I know. I
Absolutely.
agree. Yeah.
So even your deep dives into things that I don't necessarily collect, like the Stormtrooper helmet episode, I think I've watched that like 3 or 4 times. It's a great episode.
Oh, wow.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, cool.
It's very interesting. So yeah, I think for me, once I got into the podcast, you spoke to each one of my fears, right? One was, how do you know it's real? You also did an episode, I think, start of season 2. How do you know it's fake? You talked about how the auction process actually works, the live auction process, because I had never done anything like that before.
The answer to that question, by the way, how do you know it's fake, is that it's an Iron Man helmet. That's
yes. Oh, I thought it was on eBay. It's on eBay, right?
No, there's still gold to be found on eBay, but yes,
boy.
yeah.
So yeah, that all of that helped a lot. You certainly talked about value. I know that's not the point of the podcast. It's not your favorite subject on the podcast, but you can't get into this hobby without talking about it. But
well, no, and obviously, yeah, especially if you are coming into the hobby and you're looking for things and you're making a list, and again, I think everybody should be a little pie in the sky when they're first making a list, because I'm a big believer in the list. Here are 20 things I would love to have, but you do want to kind of go, well, wait a second, I just made a list of 20 things that I have to sell my house to get, as opposed to, 20 things that are, perhaps actually accessible or whatever. So no, I think value obviously comes into it. We try not to lead with it, I guess. So yeah.
It's frankly, it's part of any collecting hobby,
Yes,
right? There's
yeah.
some things that are going to be more valuable than others, and you just have to
Yeah.
understand that going in. And as a lifelong collector, I mean, I get those things, right? But we're just talking about different numbers between replicas and the
Sure.
real thing, right? But like I said, the biggest one was, how do you know it's real? And it's something you've had an ongoing discussion about. And that's really helped me become more comfortable in the hobby, and feel better about my purchases. I will also say there's something about coming out of the replica world. There's certain pieces I personally would never go after, simply
Just
because
because there's so many replicas.
Yes, I know there's so many very well made replicas of that piece. I'm just not going to go anywhere near it.
The one thing I was going to say about the replica world, which I think is, and we've probably said it, but at this point we've done too many episodes, so I don't remember, which is, we always say, do your research. And the one thing that coming out of the replica world is there's a lot of research on the replica world.
Correct.
So that when people are trying to get a really good replica, even if, as you say, this replica is made of something different, someone has gone to the trouble to sort of figure out, well, it should be made out of X, so that when you then start approaching original props, you can kind of go, well, this is supposed to be made out of, whatever, vinyl. Oh, it's not. Then that's a problem. So there's an inherent respect for research in the replica world that I think you get to bring over to the prop collecting world, which I think is always a good thing. But anyway, wherever that fits in. Yeah.
No, 100% agree. Um, and then when when you guys kind of convinced me that, yeah, this is something I want to do.
So when then is your first new prop purchase? What
Sure.
what got you? What was it? What was take us through that story.
Yeah, again, I'm going to kind of divide this up a little
Yeah.
bit. So, once I decided, okay, you know what, I am interested in doing this. At the end of the day, I bought a replica because I felt that the original wasn't available to me, right? That's really why I was buying replicas, to just get me a little closer to what I wanted. Uh, so after listening to several episodes of the podcast, and I decided to kind of dip my toe in, if you will. I went to Prop Store's website, and I just spent hours and hours and hours looking at everything on their portal. Right.
So
Things
you're
that you
not
could just
looking.
buy.
You're not specifically looking. Yeah, you're not looking at an auction. You were just looking
Correct.
at the stuff that was the buy it now stuff. Yeah.
Exactly, and I picked up a few pieces, and I thought this is pretty cool. Now, of course, they're smaller pieces. I looked at those pieces. I did as much research as I could. That can be a challenge. Actually, I think that's one of the biggest challenges in this hobby, at least for me, is how do you go about researching some of these items? But I still felt much more comfortable.
So what were a couple of those? Like, just give me a sense.
So here's one. This is a invitation for the wrap party for Superman the movie. I'm a huge
very
fan
cool.
of those Christopher Reeve films.
Yep, of
This appeared on
course.
Prop Store's website. I bought it the moment it came up. I saw it.
Anything on the back, or is it
No,
just
it's
one
just-
side? Okay, nice.
And so what I did was the first thing I did when I got it was I looked at the name of who it was addressed to, looked up that individual. They were a stuntman
Right.
who worked on the film, right? Okay, so that lines up. And then I started looking at the information that was on this item, and I had a book in my collection, The Making of Star Trek: The Motion Picture. I'm sorry, The Making of
Superman. Yep,
Superman
I have
the
that
movie.
book.
I'm sorry.
Excellent book. Yep.
Yep. And towards the back, they talk about the wrap party. And while they don't necessarily go line by line, you can put the pieces together.
Right. It
And
matches up
everything
properly,
everything
yeah.
lined up perfectly, right? So now could it be a fake? Possible, but highly unlikely. It's not a $10,000 piece. I've only seen one. It's not like there are 30 of these things floating around out there. All the information is correct. So I felt very comfortable
That's
with
great.
this piece.
Larry, that is a fake. Ryan and I made it. I'm so sorry. We got you. You burnt.
Okay,
But
well, these
yeah,
things
sorry.
happen.
But yeah, no, you got tricked. But hey, better
Yep.
luck next time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Welcome to the hobby, kid.
Exactly. So after I did that, I'm like, okay, I think I'm ready for an auction. And I decided it was the UK, I guess, 2022 or 2023. I don't know. Years go by so fast now; it's hard to keep up. But their UK end of year auction, and they had a special effects flying miniature of the character Non from Superman 2,
Yep.
right? So I decided.
I have stared at those flying miniatures myself many a time. I'm a huge fan of that movie.
Yes,
I have a couple of
same here.
odds and ends, and I have stared at the different flying ones. I feel like I don't know if I've seen all three of the Phantom Zone villains, but I've certainly seen at least two of them, and
Yes.
obviously there have been different Christopher Reeve Superman ones, and they're really cool. Sorry, continue. Yeah.
No, they're very, very cool. And what had happened is the year before, Prop Store had gotten these directly from Derek Medding's family, who was a very famous miniature artist who worked in the James Bond films and the Superman films throughout the 70s and 80s. These came directly.
Built the Batwing.
Oh, did he? I didn't realize that.
Yes.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
very
yeah,
cool.
Well, he worked on it, yes, but yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, led the
He's
team.
the
I
guy
guess.
that came up with paint the wall yellow. That was him.
Oh,
He was the
very nice.
first. Yeah.
That's
Very
right.
nice,
That's where
very
you
nice.
got the inspiration from, Dave.
Yeah, but I saw an interview with forgive me, the gentleman who owns Prop Store, Stephen Lane. Is that right?
Joe Maddalena, go on. Joe
Oh.
Maddalena, go on.
But he was actually being interviewed on a Superman podcast. And I think he whenever they have enough Superman material in an auction, he always does
Sure.
an interview with them. And he had all three of the. He had Zod, Non, and he had one from Supergirl, the Supergirl miniature from that film.
Ah.
And he was saying they all came directly from Derek Medding's families, which made me feel very good, very, very comfortable with the piece. It was also a piece I had never seen replicated ever. Right, and that actually made me feel a
Right.
bit
Not
better.
something in your prop replica community that people
Right.
were making. Yeah.
Exactly. So Zod and Supergirl sold in the auction. They were day one pieces, but Non did not sell. Then a year later, that's when I came in, and I became aware of this, and it became a day 2 or 3 piece. Right.
So it was back in the auction a
Yes.
second time around.
Yes.
Okay, good.
And like so many things, so I decided, I told my wife, I think I'm going to go after this piece. I'm really interested in this piece. She knows how much I love those films. And so I did. I registered. I used the app to make my bidding. And of course, unlike the previous year, now the thing was like, gangbusters. Everybody was bidding on it. The price was
really?
like,
That's
I think
funny.
it went for twice what Zod did the year before. But I won it, and I was
Did
thrilled.
you go into that auction with a max? Meaning, did you did you and your wife make a plan in terms of like, I will not bid more than X, or how did you kind of approach the number, so to speak?
So I will say auction fever kind of got me. Yep. And I did kind of have a number in mind, and it went past that number. And my strategy at the time was, I'm going to let everyone else kind of beat each other up, and I'm going to come in at the end. Let's see how this thing plays out.
Sure.
And so I put in a bid when it seemed to settle down a little bit. Somebody else put in a bid, and then I found myself, kind of hovering over the bid button.
Right.
Am I really going to do it?
So then it's you and that
Yes.
other person
Yes.
kind of fighting it out. Yeah.
And I decided one more. I'm just going to go a little higher, and I won.
Excellent.
And I was doing a happy dance in the living room, and I was also terrified at the same time because I just spent more money in my life.
What have I
than
just
I'd ever-
what have I just done?
Exactly. What have I just done?
And also, you're a collector, right, Larry? So you know that this is the first taste of now a brand new problem. So it's not just this piece, but now what avalanche have I started here?
Well, absolutely correct. I'd also picked up a rifle from Flash Gordon. That's actually right here.
Great.
In my display
Is that
case.
who uses that? Which of the
It would have been
the
one
gangs?
of Ming's guards.
One of the Ming guard ones. Gotcha.
Yes,
Cool.
yes. And I love that 1980 Flash Gordon movie. One of those movies I saw as a kid, fell in love with it. I've liked it ever since. So I picked up that. So those are my first 2 items. And when they showed up in the mail, and I actually
Very
opened
cool.
them
So
up.
that's in the same.
Yes.
That's in the same auction. Okay.
Yes. Yes. So I got 2 items in that first auction. Yes.
Very
And
nice.
then when they actually showed up and I opened the boxes, well, that was it. I was done. I couldn't believe I had these items in my house, and I was hooked.
When you were going over your initial sort of when the auction fever was hitting you, were you thinking about, I'm gonna start getting rid of replicas, like I'm gonna sell some of my replicas, or did was that in your brain, or were you know what I mean, like when auction fever hits for me, I'm definitely starting to think about like, okay, that guy's always been interested in blank, I can offer him this, whatever it is, on some sort of a scale of like, well, I can sell if I need to. Were you starting to go there, or was it sort of more like, I've done this and we'll kind of regroup and figure it out after the fact, kind of a thing?
When I opened up Non and I took him out, I think I looked at my replicas and said, bye guys. I'm thank you.
Okay.
It's been a wonderful experience, but this is what I want. This is what I've always wanted.
So you started selling the replicas
I
basically
did.
at that point. Wow.
And over the last couple of years, I've probably sold about 70% of what I had.
Wow.
I probably have some additional pieces I'm going to go ahead and move on this year as well. So I still have some replicas, but it's not nearly as many as I once had. Yeah.
And how has that gone for you? Because Dave had a different experience getting into. I went through a very similar experience, and how I mean, and you were collecting replicas longer than I have been. I'm sure your collection is large.
Did well. Like some of your replicas were rare replicas. So by the time you went to sell your replicas, your replicas to replica people were in demand. I don't know what words to use.
I had a collection that was sort of half made of really interesting bespoke stuff. Like I had a Terry English set of armor that was a replica set of armor from Aliens, but made actually by Terry English, like a Hudson set of armor, which obviously is in demand. But there's also a kind of, I don't know, not set price, but there's sort of a range that has always gone for. And yes, Prop Store has sold some through auction that people don't probably the buyers know a little bit less about the history of that. But what really did well for me, and I don't know where you come down on this or where your collection sits with it, I had a good amount of licensed stuff from like master replicas who had gone out of business, or at least the original version of master replicas had gone out of business and been bought by a toy company, so they were making more mass produced stuff. But when they were making this really high end limited edition numbered stuff, there wasn't a lot of it. And if you still had the original packaging and all that, I was seeing 2 and 3 and 4x on that stuff in terms of what I had invested, and I had kept all of that stuff. So I sort of like broke even, or maybe lost a little on the kind of handmade stuff, the stuff that I was most interested in probably as a replica collector. And I did really well on the licensed stuff, the sort of factory made stuff that was made in limited edition. But I don't know where did, and also I would ask, like, how did you come down on all of it? And because I'm sure this is a big part of your life, you don't want to take a bath on it just to get it out the door. You want to be sort of careful and methodical.
It's not a fire sale. It's these are things you really do like, but you are moving on from, which is a very different thing. Yeah.
And then where was this all eBay, RPF, combination of both? Like, interested in all of that. How did that go for you?
Yeah, so I chose not to do eBay. Frankly, I'm not very fond of selling on eBay.
Let me ask you this though, Larry. If I were to send you a box of crap from my place, would you put it on eBay for me one at a time, do all the shipping and whatever, and I would give you like 10 or 20%? Would you be interested in that? I understand you don't want to sell your own stuff, but would you do my stuff? Yeah.
Well, my wife actually is also a collector. She collects Mego toys from the 70s.
Oh.
She is, yeah. And so she's been cleaning out some of her closets over the last year or so herself. And she actually sells quite often on eBay. She'll wrap up like 5, 6, 7, 8 action figures, make it a lot, and then just put it on eBay and let it go for whatever it goes for.
And with the Mego
So
stuff,
is your wife interested in selling Dave's crap?
Or actually, now let me go the other way. Does she have any really good Mego to sell me? Now we've gone the flip side. Now I'm just buying
acquisition mode.
She has some pretty cool ones.
Does she do like all the different lines, like the superhero stuff and everything, or does she concentrate on certain lines?
No, she's pretty wide in her interests. So she has the Marvel, the DC, Star Trek, Battlestar, but a lot of the newer ones as well that have come out over the last 10 to 15 years.
Well, you must have gotten a kick. The original series Trek ones, the aliens, the bridge that they made. Those are gorgeous toys.
So I
really good likenesses too. Yeah,
they were. And actually, I brought that to the marriage. My wife, I think that's one of the reasons she married me. She's like, well, if you bring the bridge set and the Mego figures, we have a deal. And she still got that. My bridge set, I had all of the crew figures that they had made, and several of the aliens, like the Romulan and the Gorn, and so those are all original. Yeah, she's got hundreds.
Do you guys have the Gamma whatever set with the
Mission to Gamma 6?
Mission to Gamma 6.
Boy, I just never quite got there. When I was doing the toys, it was on my list, but I just never ended up getting one, and then at some point I'd moved on to replicas.
I had it as a kid. I played with it. Oh, I had it as a kid and destroyed it. I mean, I really played through. Ryan, it was this giant sort of alien world Star Trek playset for the action figures, and the coolest thing about it was this sort of giant sort of, I don't know, dragon monster looking sort of like sacrificial temple kind of a thing. But there was a place, and this was what made it a great toy. At the bottom, there was like a hole in the back, and you could put your hand in. And then there was a glove, like a scaled glove that your hand would then go into. And so, like, when you're playing, your own hand would come out of the toy, but now covered in this like scaled glove, and it was like it could grab the other action figures and kind of pull them into the temple. It was a really like ingenious toy. Anyway, Mission to Gamma, whatever.
Mission to
Gamma
really,
6. Yep. Really cool toy. So,
and is that now is this super rare?
It is.
Well,
it's a rare
super
toy.
rare, even loose, but it's crazy rare, like in a pack, like in a sealed package. Yeah.
Yep. So she does not have that, but she does have the bridge, and she doesn't get a lot of the playsets actually. She just prefers to get the figures
The
themselves.
figures, yeah.
But yeah,
Nice.
she's got display cases, and they're all over her room.
Well,
So
I mean that's cool that you have a collector for a wife. Both Dave
unless
and I-
she starts to go, no, it's my turn. Like you don't get to.
Yeah,
I'm bidding over. I'm bidding over here. You're out of luck, Mister. Yeah.
But I was just going to get into, for David and I, we absolutely did not have collector wives. The conversation about getting into collecting and all that is a bit different. But I mean, what did that look and sound like for you when you were going to now make this transition into almost
Because
entirely a
she
new
knows
hobby?
you're a collector. Obviously, you
Yes.
have been spending money, but you are sort of kind of saying, "Honey, I'm about to like level up in a
Yes.
new way." And obviously, you may understand collecting. You yourself are a collector. We have collected together, but this is different. Like this is definitely
was.
different. Yeah. Was she in the room when you were bidding on none and going over your bid? Like how did that fall out?
No, I don't know. I'm a little weird. I don't like anyone to be around me while I'm bidding. I just need to be in a quiet space with my phone. I don't need any distractions. I don't need anybody looking at me. I just want to make my bid, win or lose. So she was not watching me bid, but I got the catalog from Prop Store. I showed her what I was going to go after. She was all in. She knows how much I love these films. And how much a piece like this would mean to me as a collector, and so she was very supportive. In fact, as I was starting to sell off, I think Ryan, to your question a few minutes ago, what was it like to sell off these pieces? She said, "Are you sure you want to sell these pieces? It's you don't have to, right? I'm
Dear
sure we
Lord.
can."
Yeah.
Yeah, and I said, "No, I'm ready to kind of move on to the next phase of my collecting journey." And so yeah, she's been very supportive of the entire process. In terms of selling the pieces, I decided I'm much more of a fan of selling collector to collector, as opposed to just putting it on eBay, and you never know who's going to bid on something like that. It's always a little frustrating because sometimes they don't know what they're getting. I've sold some pieces on eBay years ago, and then it's like, oh, I thought it would look better. I thought it would look different. It's like, no, that is what it is. Um, so I did have some of those master replica pieces, like the aliens. With the searcher, the finder, the radar gun, whatever.
The motion tracker.
Motion
Thank you,
tracker,
thank you, motion tracker. I had pieces like that, and yeah, I some. I think I had an unobtainium Men in Black. Do you remember that company,
Yeah.
Unobtainium? Right, and they had put out a Men in Black noisy cricket.
Yep.
I sold that. So yeah, those pieces did relatively well. The more handmade, garage kind of pieces, um, they did okay. I was, if I could just make my money back or even lose a little bit, that was fine. I was happy that it was going to another collector, somebody who would actually
Yeah.
cherish
Yeah.
the item.
And is this all RPF junkyard? Is that how most of this is going?
A lot of it, but I'm also members of some Star Trek collecting boards, and so a lot of my
Okay.
Star Trek items, I went through there. I've got a number of very good friends who are into the replica Trek world prop collecting piece, and so uh, they took several items. I was thrilled that they got them. So that's how I've been kind of managing the disposal, if you will, of my replicas.
De-ascension.
Have
Yeah,
your
the Ascension.
replica have your replica friends sort of said, "Why are you getting rid of this stuff?" And you said, "Well, I'm buying some original props." And have they shunned you? Are they still your friends? Like, what's happening? Yeah.
No, they're still my friends. In fact, we are getting together soon. And no, it's just no. I think maybe they're a little surprised because I've been in the hobby for so long, and at the end of the day, it's true that most of these pieces I will never reacquire. Right? It's you. I'm never going to find the original of that piece. I don't even know if
Right.
it's out there anymore. Right? And if it is, it could be a $200,000 piece, while the replica is a $500 piece. Right?
Sure.
So, but no, I'm like I'm okay with this because I just feel like I would rather have one real amazing piece than 30 replicas.
I know it
Agreed.
bothers. I know 1,000% agreed, and I know it bothers you the idea that if something has had too many replicas. But I was curious, and I do want to hear what else you've sort of gone on to purchase.
Mhm.
But have you yet to purchase an original prop for your collection yet where you had a replica version of it, and now you've got a real one, and obviously you felt comfortable, you did your research, blah 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 blah, but now you've gone from having something someone made or was one of one of 500 that were store bought, and now you actually have the motherfucking piece from the motherfucking movie. So tell us about that.
Yes, I do. About 8 or 9 items actually where I had a replica.
Okay.
So the Rocketeer helmet, this is the one, Dave, that you showed off in one of those. It's a great piece. I had a really wonderful
gorgeous,
replica for many years. I sold off the replica before I even knew I could get this piece. This was one of those pieces. It really is a dream piece for me. This just seemed like something that was a little bit out of my reach. And as luck would have it, I was able to make an offer on this. It got accepted, and now it's part of my collection. So this is probably the biggest item that I had a replica of.
Absolutely gorgeous.
It's a wonderful, wonderful piece.
Incredible.
Another one for me is this is Dr. McCoy's medical case. This one,
yes, you had sent a picture of this. I remember seeing this. This was so cool.
This is a wonderful piece. And I had a replica of this, a very good replica that was actually referenced from this piece. Greg Jean was actually
Greg had let them take pictures and measurements and whatnot. Sure, of course, yeah.
He did. And that's one of my all-time favorite pieces because I'm a huge TOS fan. Right. I got some nice pieces from Logan's Run where I had replicas, also from the Greg Jean auction. A Superman crystal, I picked that up in a prop store auction last year. I had a replica. So absolutely, I've had replicas that I've sold off, right? And now I've since gotten back the real thing, and there's just nothing better than that.
You really dove in with both feet, Larry. Good for you.
This is it's very exciting. I did.
Oh,
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, and I think the kit is this one checked all the boxes. It is from the original series. It was used by a main character in multiple episodes. I actually watched it was introduced in season 2, and they used it in 30 different episodes over the last 2 years of the show. I screen matched it to a shot in the 3rd season episode.
I feel like a proud father right now.
It gets even better.
Look what our boy's done.
I know,
Ryan,
my goodness. So I knew it came from Greg Jean's collection, and that, of course, in and of itself, you felt pretty good about it, right? But I knew there was another collector out there who had a number of Star Trek TOS pieces, and he and I had never crossed paths. But it was like kind of this dumb luck kind of thing where he'd be in the room and step out, and then I would walk in the room, right, in the same room, and we were at events, and we literally just missed one another. And because I didn't know him, I didn't really feel comfortable sending him an email. I understood he knew Greg Jean, but as luck would have it, one of my close friends met him at a party, told me about him, and that was kind of my in. I sent him a message and said, hey, a buddy of mine you met recently was telling me about you, blah, blah, blah. I got this kit. Can you tell me anything else about it? I understand you knew Greg. And he said, well, I can do better than that. I can tell you where Greg got it. He got it from John Dwyer, who was the set decorator on the original Star Trek series. And he said, here's some pictures I took of it when John Dwyer owned it. And I'm like, oh my God, that's my kit. So now I have a lineage. I've got that history of
gorgeous,
piece, right, which is great. I go to Greg, to John Dwyer, back to the original series.
I was curious just because that Greg Jean auction, obviously, I mean, I think it's an auction we're all still going to be referencing, 20 years from now. Do you got, and the Star Trek, exactly. And the Trek stuff, all the Trek stuff. But I mean, let's just concentrate for 4 seconds on the original show, like just the 60s show. Did you have trouble? I mean, I think on some level, I know I did. I mean, it was almost like in a world where occasionally there's a piece or two, and now all of a sudden, oh my God, look at here's everything
all at once.
Yes.
Like the discipline to kind of go, the McCoy thing is for me, or did you try for a couple of other things as well and not like? How did you approach that? Just because that must have been that was probably. Well, it was big for everybody, but obviously for you as a, say year 2 of your collecting, beginning to collect original props, that and I know you mentioned the Planet Hollywood auction. Those are some pretty giant auctions to sort of, I don't know, even for us as longtime collectors to make heads or tails of. So I was just curious, like,
Yeah,
what it
those
was
are both
like.
all
Yeah.
timers for us, and
Yeah.
we've been doing this for a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, and they were difficult, especially the Greg Jean auction, because there was so much in that auction. I mean, certainly the TOS stuff was.
Right.
I've never seen so much TOS stuff in
Yeah.
one pace, right? I mean, it was
No, it was
and
arguably too much. Arguably too much. Man.
Nor
the
will you
kind
again,
of-
by the way.
No,
Yeah.
I know. And the kind of things that were in that auction, it's one thing to have a phaser and a communicator or a tricorder, but he just had everything. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And then the non-Trek stuff. Logan's Run, Buck Rogers, V, the original miniseries from the 80s. There was just so much good stuff in the auction. I actually ended up picking up 4 lots. Only one was Trek, the Medikit, but they had 2 stunt lots, Logan's Run pieces, followers and a pistol.
Oh,
so
nice.
I picked up the stunt pieces, and that right there's a helmet from the Arnold Schwarzenegger film.
Total Recall.
Total Recall?
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you. Yeah. So I picked those 4 items up, but
nice.
that's not necessarily what I expected going in. I was going after some other pieces that our wonderful friend Bitter 7101 got, right?
He changed a lot of people's plans. So yeah,
very quickly. If my experience was anywhere close to your experience, I was watching the auction, right? And I see 7101, and then by the time you got to the 3rd or the 4th, and we're only like 6 lots in, my heart sunk, right? I thought, oh, there's some billionaire who's just going to buy up the catalog.
Yeah.
But hey, at the end of the day, I got
came out with came out with 4 pieces and the McCoy thing.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Planet Hollywood. Was it kind of a little overwhelming? I was just curious in terms of.
Honestly, not, because it came after the Greg Jean, and I think the Greg Jean was almost it was almost intimidating. It was such a comprehensive, catalog, and in fact, there was a pistol from Buck Rogers. This is like this.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Right.
Cool.
And in the Greg Jean auction, they had one up, and I really felt I could get this prop. This was what I really wanted, actually. It was one of my high tier. This is what I want, and I was just beaten into submission. And of course, when they announced the winner, 7101,
yeah,
I was like, I was pretty unhappy. I really, really, really wanted that piece. Then the Planet Hollywood auction comes up. I don't know 6 months later, something like that. Mm. And not only did they have the exact same pistol, but it came with another pistol, 2 pistols,
right.
And they also had another lot of 2 other pistols and a rifle. I got all 5 of those pieces for less than what 7101 paid for 1 pistol in the Great Jean auction.
Great.
Right.
Very
so
cool.
yeah. So
it's
the nature of auctions, right? It's just is the right person in the room or not? So when I got to the Planet Hollywood, I picked up those 2 Buck Rogers lots and a Cocoon maquette, the head from Cocoon.
Oh, yep. Uh-huh.
Because I love that film. And I was very happy. I felt like the prices I paid were very reasonable.
Very cool.
Yeah, that was a great auction.
I love that, and again, I was just going to say, just from maybe your replica background,
Mm-hmm.
I love that you get the stuff on display very quickly. That like you have
Yes.
stands and things made already, and that you've got them up. That you're not only buying them, but they're forgive me, they're not in the box, they're not in the closet, they're on your shelf, they're displayed, they're well displayed. I was just going to point that out. I was very excited about that. Yeah.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I've always been that type of collector. I'm a big believer that everything has a place. Right, and I want to present that item as best as I can. When you had the episode with Tom Spina,
yep,
yeah,
so all my helmet stands come from Tom Spina's company.
Yep,
I like having kind of that unified look for all the helmet stands, and then I like acrylic pieces because I don't like the display to overwhelm the item in the display. I just want to show the item as best that I can.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, it's incredibly well done, and it speaks to the love and reverence that you have for all the pieces. And I think it's an important thing for a collector. And for me, it really helped me focus my own collecting. And we've talked about this before, but are you going to put it on display, and are you going to take the care to send it out or to go to the framer or whatever, talk to the expert. We have people here in the UK. There's people in LA that help with this with LA Prop Store. Dave has been working with one of them, but it's such a, to me, integral part about acquiring the piece is then figuring out how you're not only going to put it on display, but also how you're going to take care of it and preserve it, because all those things are safer sitting where they're sitting behind you than they would be in a cardboard box in your closet with, I'll get to that later. So I think that's really important.
I was going to say I'm definitely I am not a fan of filling my closet with items. I'm just not that kind of collector. If I can't put it out on display, I really have no desire to buy it. Right, I've got to be able to
I don't know what you're saying. I don't. I'm getting just clicks and pops. Nothing. I heard none of that. Anyway, sorry. What were we talking about?
You generally do that.
I do try and display.
You
things.
just get a little trigger happy sometimes. Larry, I have a question. So now that you've settled into this, it's a couple years in. What is your list? I mean, what are I assume you've ticked some things off of your top 10, but like what's hanging out there in the sort of even a few things that you think are acquirable, and then maybe a few things that you think are more of a reach as we head on down the road into the future, the unknown future.
I was specifically curious if you have like a moonshot piece where like it is definitely more than you're used to, but you know you'd love to get blank. But yeah, no, very curious about your list.
Sure, actually, very high up on my list, I would like to get a Battlestar Galactica helmet from the original series.
Series, okay.
Yeah, I'm not really a costuming collector, but boy, those jackets are cool. I know, Dave, you had owned a helmet and a jacket at one point, and you had talked about that.
No, I think I told the story that when I finally actually had the display made to sell them, it made me go like, oh God, I really like the look of this, but yeah. Yeah, but I did. At some point or another, I reduced my Battlestar collection, which was I had multiple pieces, and at some point, I'm lucky enough to have a Cylon, and I just went, you know what, Cylon is good. I can live without everything else, and I don't regret it, but I do regret it. But yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But Larry, that stuff will all come around. That'll come back around.
And I think it will. I'm trying to be patient. And I need. And I'll be honest. I probably spent a little more than I should have last year. So I need to rebuild the war chest.
Sure.
And that's what I'm looking to do this year. But yeah, Battlestar Galactica. That was a show that I just loved as a kid. I think I was 10 years old when it came on. It was great. Like I said, the original Lost in Space. I would like to have something, maybe a laser.
Something from there. Yep.
Yeah, okay. I don't need 20 different things from Lost in Space, but I wouldn't mind having something like that in my collection.
But as you said, you're not a costume person, so those various tunics from the different characters that have shown up, the shirts and whatnot, that doesn't hit you in quite the same way.
No, not really. And I'm never gonna say I'm never gonna buy a costume.
No, of course, yeah.
Right. I absolutely, Ryan. I'm so jealous of that Star Trek II Kirk costume that you have. It's a wonderful piece. Absolutely wonderful piece. It's a really, really great piece. That would be something that I would get, right? If that opportunity presented itself and I could afford it. It's really outside of my price range, but it's a great piece. So something like that. Maybe like I also picked up in the last the prop store auction. I picked up the Hero Planet of the Apes rifle.
Okay. I saw a picture of that, one of the wood ones.
Actually, what's really cool, it's actually with the wood ones with the background pieces. This is actually metal. It's a metal shroud around a deactivated rifle.
Oh, very cool.
It's a great piece. I really love it, but I would love to have like just something else. I'd love those original films. So something in the like some of the makeup appliances or something like that.
Ape head.
Yeah. The original V miniseries from the 80s that we talked about a few minutes ago. I'm a big fan of that that film.
So like a
hand props, weapons, models,
or a weapon or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd gone after some of those V miniatures in the Greg
those
auction.
Went crazy in that Greg.
They did. I ended up. I It's a little bit of a regret. I kind of wish I'd gone a little harder after a couple of those pieces.
I think unfortunately you might have lost anyway. I'm just honestly,
Yeah.
we were sitting there shocked by those numbers. Again,
Shocked,
just
yeah.
not that. And again, we all, like those of us that were sitting there, we're all Veep fans. We like Veep, blah 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 blah. But just in a million years, and I will say, I feel like when a V ship shows up in a non-Greg Jean auction the next time, I bet you it doesn't do close to those numbers.
You'll be okay.
That's my
And
guess.
I agree. I agree.
I've been around for a while, so I've seen a lot of that stuff. Actually, there's a collector out here who has quite a bit of it, and all that stuff is out there. I mean, I think that entire show is out there. That stuff will come around. It maybe not the stuff I think that's sold in the Greg Jean auction, because I think that probably went into a black hole. But the other stuff is around, and that will come around.
Yep. So I'd say those are at the top of my list. I'm
Very cool.
I'm always open. What's interesting about this hobby is, when you're collecting action figures, you know what's out there, right? You can put together a list.
Collect all 12, collect all whatever. Yeah,
exactly. But this hobby doesn't quite work like that, right?
No.
So it's like I can't just make a list of specific items necessarily. More like a list of films or TV shows that I would like to get something from, and then I just have to keep my eye out for what surfaces.
What's the no bars, no limits? What's the holy grail? What's the one thing, if you could pluck anything out of your past, your childhood, of all these properties that you love? What is the thing?
That's actually a very easy answer. It's the original series Hero Phaser Type 2.
Yeah, okay.
That sold at Julian's, was it 900,000? Something like that.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. So that would be my dream prop. If I won the lottery and I could, make an offer to whoever bought that, that would be my dream piece.
Yeah, that was a gorgeous piece. Yeah, that was wild.
It was wonderful.
Have you, I know you've been in the replica world for a very long time. Have you, I don't know whether it's like a Facebook group or anything, have you gotten involved in any of like original prop collecting, like groups or chat groups or anything like that? And have you started meeting, besides myself and Ryan, have you met other fellow collectors like that? Again, maybe perhaps you haven't known as long as some of your replica folks, but have you sort of participated in the world a little bit, I guess?
A little bit. So I wasn't really much of a Facebook user.
Sure.
But I thought, I know there's some groups on Facebook, and so that might open up some, opportunities to meet new people, other collectors, get some additional information, find out more about the hobby. So I did. I'm taking a break from Facebook right now.
Not a bad idea. Go on. Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's a little challenge. Facebook is a little challenging at times. So I'm taking a break right now, but I'm sure I'll get back into it at some point. Maybe as we get closer to the next major
auction. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Coming soon. Yeah. Exactly.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh
no,
yeah.
It doesn't stop. Yeah.
It's
and it's just been snowballing.
It's
just been snowballing. I don't know, but there are just too many auctions, guys. You're killing me.
So Larry, any regrets? Anything?
No, I don't. No, I love this hobby. I absolutely love this hobby.
Besides
and it's
coming on this podcast?
Yeah. Oh, this has been great. I've been looking forward to this.
Good.
No, I really do love this hobby. It's one of those things. If you don't get it, you just don't get it. But if you do, I think that, it's just such a wonderful experience, and the opportunity to own one-of-a-kind pieces that were actually used to make this thing that I love so much. There's nothing like it. It's wonderful.
Agreed.
Well, yeah, 1,000% agreed, and 1,000% apologies for dragging you into this.
Yes, posting on the RPF, I love that. I that was one of the things I did very early, and I should probably revisit that thread and see if I can bump it to the top just for a season 10 thing. But I figured there were people kind of lurking around there that like you, that were either collected the stuff or were at least interested in hearing the stories. I mean, that's how I really got attracted to the hobby. Was I just Brandon Allinger and I, a good friend, the chief operating officer of the LA operation. I lived in LA for just under a year when he moved out to LA for the first time, and we knew each other from the replica world, and we were just friends. We were friends from shared interests. And both of us were single, and we just went out all the time and had beers. And this is in our 20s in a simpler time. And I didn't know anything about it. And he would just tell me these stories about his treasure hunts. And this guy has this thing, and we think this thing is over here. And there's this crazy story about this thing that had it and disappeared. And just because of my history brain and the way that I just got really intrigued by all that stuff. And I just didn't realize that there was this whole kind of underlayer to the world. So that was it for me. I mean, I think even if I had ended up in a different job and couldn't afford this stuff, I think somehow I would be involved just because I loved the stories about all of it. And I think I don't know. I think there is a book or a documentary or something to be told about the history, the provenance of these objects, and how some of them have, by just total luck and happenstance, been rescued and come to light.
But I was going to say, the one thing that is nice, and look, it doesn't mean you're going to be, whatever, bidding against Peter Jackson and winning or anything like that. It doesn't mean you're necessarily going to get an X-Wing or whatever. But I still do feel like, and this is not true in all collecting fields, you can pick a budget, and obviously you have to know your budget, but that you can find, like, still cool things from movies you like. And it might be,
Yes.
might be interesting paperwork or whatever on the lower end. But even on the lower end, there are still actual hand props and used things that show up at like really reasonable numbers. Again, you have to like those movies. You have to sort of be like thinking realistically. But I still appreciate the fact that I do think you can kind of come in on any level, and obviously whether you work your way up or you stay there forever, you can get something, and there's something to be said for that collecting wise. So yeah.
I agree, and I would also add that you also have to, when you look at your budget, maybe over the course of a year, you have to make a decision. Do you want to buy one great piece,
right, or 20?
Do you want to buy,
yeah,
exactly, right? Do you want 20 pieces of paper, or do you want a hand prop? Right.
Mm-hmm. And I do think initially, and it sounds like you did not get suckered into that as much, I think initially people get in and will pick up way too many of the low-end pieces, like the 20 pieces of paper, again, because it's all really cool, and look at this, and look, you got that great Superman invite, fantastic, but you didn't follow it up with 19 other cast and crew invites. And so when the time came, again, let's call 20 of those pieces $100 each. That's $2,000. And it's like when people when you do the math like that, you start to realize, ooh, the one good piece is a little more fun, a little bit better. So yeah,
that's exactly how I looked at it. Because I could spend thousands of dollars
sure,
on props, because there's a lot of great stuff out there. There really is. But it was a decision to be made. Do I want to have a file folder full of really great material,
right?
Or do I want something more like a flying miniature of Non,
right,
or a
display case,
a Buck Rogers, exactly?
No, a piece for the shelf.
I went the latter, right? Yeah, that's what I wanted.
Yeah, very smart. Sometimes it takes a year or two to learn that lesson. I mean, I definitely, when I think back on my comic art collecting, I was just buying things that I liked. Like artists I liked from, like comics I liked, but not necessarily the one I wanted because it was in front of me and I was buying this stuff. And then later on kind of went, oh, I bought 4 of those, but this is the one I really, really want. Bought the one I really wanted and sold those other 3 or 4. But it was a learning process of how things come out and waiting for the right thing. And you definitely, I think, a little bit from the replica field, but also your nature, you feel like you're wired into some of those aspects in a good way. So kudos wherever that fits in. Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Should we play the game?
Play the game? Yeah, exactly. What were you thinking, Ryan? Were you thinking of...
we've done Star Trek before.
I know, we've done Star Trek,
We have Larry's answer, so...
Buck Rogers?
Yeah. Superman? We haven't done Superman. Should we do Superman?
Have we done Superman? I don't even know. We'll do Superman, but we're going to limit ourselves to Superman 1 and 2 only. The two original halves that would have been what they thought was going to be Superman 1 and split into Superman 1 and 2. Richard Donner and Dick Lester, right? That's his name. 2 directors. Anything, price, no object, anything you want from the Superman movie. Those 2 Superman movies.
Yeah. So what's interesting about collecting from those types of films is I am also not the kind of guy who likes an off-the-shelf type item, right? So it's like, oh, look at that lamp on Lex Luthor's desk, right? I want something more custom made. So I I'm going to kind of break my own costuming rule and say a Christopher Reeve uniform,
Yeah.
Superman costume. I
Yeah.
mean, it is the quintessential one and done piece, right?
It is. It really is. It's been on my mind a lot. I won't pick that because you've picked it, but yeah, it's been on my mind, and it's definitely on my collecting list. Although the number only gets worse and worse and worse
keeps
and
getting
worse.
crazier. Yeah. And I was very much like you, Larry. I used to be like a hard object guy. Like I wanted helmets and hand props. That's kind of what sort of where, I mean, generally where I wanted to be. And then as you kind of go on down the road, I think, let's see. We'll revisit in 3 to 5 years. We should have you back on. I bet you end up going with the things you're interested in. I bet you end up going wardrobe because it really is great, and there is an intimidation factor about how do I display it and make it look cool and not just like a thing. But because you're not collecting from like All the President's Men in Chinatown, because of what you're collecting, you know, a Battlestar jacket is awesome.
Exactly.
A Rocketeer jacket is awesome.
Yes.
I think you will kind of likely turn the corner on this stuff is my sense. But yes, the Superman suit would be a good one, a good first breaking of your own rule. What about you, Dave?
Well, because you've said it, I will. Yes, Superman suit. I always loved that kryptonite on the chain that's been in auction.
That's very cool.
That has sold, and I always love that, and definitely a little bit of a sort of a regret. And again, I've tried not to go after a lot of Superman stuff because I didn't have the suit, and yet I never got the suit, and I never got those pieces that I also liked. The Marlon Brando, which has been around, is the white Marlon Brando in the photo reflective one.
Okay.
That's really incredible. They've got one of those at the Warner Brothers Lot Museum, where we were when we were there, we were like taking flash photos, and it lights up white. I mean, it's really cool. So I'll go Marlon Brando because it's just too damn good. So yeah,
that's a really good one. I
about
have sort of two minds because I think of like that's a film that I like. I enjoy it. It's a big deal for my dad. That was very much his street, and you know he was into like original DC comics, obviously from a previous generation. So he collected a lot of the comics. So Superman was very much his guy. So I have memories of going to see those, not the first one, but the subsequent, probably the bad ones, 3 and 4 in the theater with him. But I do, I have a warm memory when I think of like Chris Reeve's Superman. So my sort of
By the way, sorry, not to interrupt. I don't know if either of you have watched it, but the documentary on Christopher Reeve is a real tearjerker, but obviously quite fabulous.
If you don't weep watching that movie, I don't think you're human. I mean, Super/Man. It's on HBO on Max. I think you can also buy it on the digital store if you so care. But terrific. Yes. So I'm of two minds. So the sort of my default answer is I go green crystal, because I've seen those. I've never had one. I've never owned one. I know, Dave, you have a lovely one. Friend of the podcast, Rob Klein, has a really beautiful one. I think just to me, because it just says Superman in a way where you don't need a whole character.
It really does. It's a
and
single
also
thing,
a mortgage.
But yes, but it is interesting how unique those crystals are. I mean, the concept of let's do a crystal, and yet all these years later, it's like that's not from any other movie in a great way. Yeah.
It's really cool in that way. And then I honestly don't even, because I've never seen this. I don't pay much attention, but I don't think I've seen this. It's probably an off the shelf item, so it's probably nothing. But Clark Kent's glasses. I would just think that like if you had. If there was some kind of like tortoise shell, something, whatever, I don't know what the frame is, where you could match it. You knew those were the ones from like Superman 1 or 2. To me, because that is the disguise, I just think that would be a great sort of budget kind of, not the costume, not the crystal, kind of one and done for Superman, like a low key Superman collectible. So there you go.
Oh, that's pretty great.
Have you ever seen those, Dave? Have you ever seen, has there been Clark? Is that an off?
I'm
do you
trying
know, Larry,
to remember.
Replica World, is that an off-the-shelf item? Is that like a popular frame that they just used, or was it something more bespoke that they made for the film?
I don't know. I don't know if there's bespoke.
That might be a Rob Klein question. I don't know. I feel like I've seen a Clark Kent costume, but I can't remember for the life of me if there were glasses or not, or if there were glasses, were they real or anything of that nature. Yeah. That's a tough one, but that's great. That's a great piece. Yeah,
That would
those
be a very
really,
cool piece.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see what they looked like unto themselves, like just
Yeah.
if they ever did show up. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, there are prop glasses that are cool and sort of singularly identifiable, especially
Yes.
when you picture it next to a photo. You know, I remember those for a long time. The Henry Jones Sr. glasses floated around, and they were just very unique. And I think they custom made those for the movie, and they were just I don't know. They were, again, if I didn't have,
it's like when you see those Harry Potter glasses, you kind of know what they
Yeah.
are, like
Yeah.
instantly.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
you know, again, nothing I've ever gone after, but it's like, oh, those are cool and
That-
they're unique. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
All right. Well, fantastic.
That's a show.
Yeah, Larry,
Wonderful.
thank you so much. Keep going out there and spending. And you know, if you would like to attract new people to the collecting world, such as Larry, then maybe you want to sponsor the Stuff Dreams Are Made Of. Something to think about, everybody. You know, Heritage is no dummy. You know,
It does work.
It does work. Yeah, look at that. Look at that. It works. Please like us on our podcast and also on our YouTube app, and follow us on social media at Props Podcast. And what else? Write us at
dreamsareMadeOfPodcast@gmail.com. And follow us all season. We have a lot of exciting content coming up. Of course, multiple auctions that we'll be covering. But it's a big, exciting new year in 2025. And
And
there's gonna
Larry's
be-
divorce case, we're going to be covering that. That's going to be excellent. So that'll be fun. We'll kind of maybe embed somebody at the proceedings. So that'll be cool. Yeah.
oh, good for you, Dave. It's going to shake so many Migos loose. You don't even know
no,
what's coming.
it's going to be
for you.
excellent. Yeah. Larry, thanks so much, and we'll talk to you
Thanks,
soon. All
Larry.
right.
Great. Thank you so much, guys.